as you may have heard, the governor, Mike DeWine, which is not necessarily in your direct bailiwick, but you do represent the people of the 8th Congressional District, some 800,000 people. And the governor appears to be edging toward the idea next Friday of shutting down bars, restaurants, and gyms, workout facilities, and also putting severe restrictions on weddings and other get-togethers. And the governor said on the air with me afternoon today that the reason is that when you eat or drink sitting in a restaurant, you spend a good chunk of your time not wearing a mask. And that can be a source of transmission. I said to the governor, well, you said a couple months ago that that's not the case. He said the data has changed. So as someone representing a good chunk of Ohio, what is your reaction? I did bring up to the governor the balance of power, separated powers in the legislature. I mentioned to him Columbus Dispatch has a big article today about Republicans and Democrats are unhappy. And so we got to talk about the election and Trump. But before we do that, give me your read as a congressman about our governor who's doing this to and on behalf of the American people, claiming it is his responsibility, and I sense he's going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and I hear about it all the time. I mean, I'm in Congress, not the state legislature, so it's not a direct thing here. But it is top of mind for constituents. And look, if you'd have told me 8 months ago that we would have, by one single executive, 8 months of orders unchecked by the legislature, and in our case, largely unchecked by the courts, orders that are effectively limiting what private citizens can do, whether it's funerals, wedding receptions, going to school, going to church, gathering for Thanksgiving in private residence, telling people not to sing or hug or dance, now deputizing small businesses to make them be the mask police when the real police said they weren't going to do it. I would never believe you were talking about Ohio or anywhere else in America. It would be like something about North Korea or Iran. This is crazy what's going on in our state and in our country this year.
Well, I look at an order out of California. Gavin Newsom is a liberal, and I think most normal Americans, Ohioans, Kentuckians, Hoosiers would say, what? It's similar here, but in California, Thanksgiving must be outside. Secondly, there must be 6 foot of separation between all the family members or friends outside of the Thanksgiving Day dinner. Thirdly, the mask must be worn even while eating or drinking, and simply open up the mask sufficiently to put in your turkey, then shut it as you're chewing. Fourthly, if it can only last for 2 hours, 2 hours you're home. And then also the governor is saying if you go to the bathroom, you have to disinfect the bathroom after every use, including aerosols. And I'm thinking, and I asked the governor about Thanksgiving. He said, well, I don't think he's going to go that far, but there's going to be government regulations about how to conduct yourself as you're passing the cranberries. What the hell's up with that?
Talk about audacity. And the crazy thing is, they're putting out rewards for spying on your neighbors. I mean, this is basically creating a police state. I mean, it's unconscionable. And look, I mean, this is a real virus. I mean, we all wish that it would just go away. It's not going away, but it's also not the virus that everyone thought was going to kill, or at least a lot of people thought was going to kill 2 million people. We have to fight the battle we're actually in, not the one that, people are so fearful of. And I'm just concerned whether it's at the State House or at the D.C., that the focus really isn't there to deal with this the right way. And, it's an encouraging sign to see, places like Pfizer developing vaccines that look promising. But look at the extension of this. You have places like Ticketmaster saying, well, if you can't prove you got a vaccine or a test within so many hours, well, you can't come to a concert. I mean, what kind of country are these people trying to create?
Well, it's not your direct bailiwick because you're in Washington, D.C., representing the 8th Congressional District. But it's amazing to me that I know the risk. I went out to Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse on Tuesday with 2 other friends. We wore a mask. Everyone wore a mask. But when you eat, you kind of have to take the mask down. And that is what the governor is focusing on in a business where you can't comply. And if you don't comply, is Brittany Ruby or Charlie Bledsoe at Carlo and Johnny's, number one, they have to police it and say you have to leave. But on the other hand, I don't know. We know the risk. I'm an adult. You're an adult. And I don't want to catch this thing. The experts say that 50 to 70% of us at some point in our lives going to catch it. It's not going away, even when Pfizer does what Pfizer does. It's going to be around for the next several decades. It's something you got to deal with along with a bunch of other difficulties in life. But this governor and many governors do not recognize the balance of power, checks and balances, because when the legislature passes laws, he vetoes it, and then there's not 2/3 to override it. He go to court, generally lose, but he doesn't appeal it, so it applies only in that county on that restrictive issue. And I'm sitting here, well, in 2 or 3 months it'll be over, I guess, because of Pfizer. It's amazing how we sit here and accept it. And I said to the governor, Warren Davidson, that when you order your product, I was in the restaurant business 20 years. Monday or Tuesday, you have the trucks coming up, and you order for the entire week. If he shuts things down a week from Friday completely, they're going to throw away millions of dollars of inventory that they can't keep on the shelves in their storerooms for the next month or two. And also 500,000 jobs are at stake. And I just... don't you know what the risks are of COVID-19? And as a human being, as an American, as a citizen, not a subject, that you know what risk to take and what risk not to take in life, right?
Well, that's exactly the proper role of government. Provide the information. Functioning adults can make rational decisions based on the information. And look, some people can decide to not go out or to send someone out on their behalf to protect targeted populations. But the idea that we're just going to go back to this crazy idea of closing everything again, and somehow the federal government's just going to print an unlimited amount of money to try to make people whole.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the governors who are issuing these orders are the ones that are putting the burden out there. They're literally making it impossible for people to operate. This isn't real pandemic risk. The risk isn't because of the pandemic. It's political risk. You've got governments deciding to take action, and overwhelmingly you see, in general, Democrat governors keeping their states closed and counting on big government, more printed money from Washington, D.C. It is a path to national bankruptcy, and what we need is informed population being able to make free decisions. And this goes the exact wrong way, in my opinion.